This week in GESM 160, we will focus on beliefs about achievement, aptitude, and intelligence. By this point in your academic career, you have taken thousands of achievement tests, from the spelling tests you took in first grade to the midterms you took a couple of weeks ago. Achievement tests measure how much someone knows or has learned about a particular topic or set of topics. Achievement tests can also be teacher-made tests, such as the quizzes and exams you take in this course, or standardized tests, such as the SAT or ACT you may have taken prior to applying to USC. They can be criterion-referenced or norm-referenced. Usually, several topics are assessed at many different difficulty levels, so achievement tests are also referred to as multi-level survey batteries. In the next few slides, we will discuss these different types of achievement tests. There are several differences between teacher-made tests and standardized tests. The majority of the assessments you have taken from kindergarten to your undergraduate studies have been teacher-made. These tests are developed by instructors, whether tutors, K-12 teachers, or college professors. They are situation-specific and are created to assess the particular lessons and activities taught by the instructor creating them. Some instructors will exert a good amount of effort ensuring that their assessments are both reliable and valid, while others may not even consider whether the assessments they've created are measuring what they've taught accurately and consistently. Standardized tests, on the other hand, go through a very rigorous and expensive process before they are officially administered. If you attended elementary, middle, and high school in the United States, you likely took standardized tests every spring, usually in May. While most of these, like the California Standards Test or CST, were multiple choice tests focused on core domains like English language arts or mathematics, some were performance assessments like the Fitnessgram, which measures the physical fitness of all 5th, 7th, and 9th graders in California. While developing the former type of test, items are written and tested on hundreds, maybe even thousands of people. Data is collected to test whether the items are reliable and valid, and then items are either deleted or rewritten. After items are finalized, the test is tried on a national level, being taken by tens or even hundreds of thousands of participants. This allows the test developers to establish norms. Think about the bell-shaped curve we discussed a few weeks ago. Norming a test refers to establishing the average scores in the populations, as well as those who are 2 or 3 standard deviations higher or lower than the central tendency. Lastly, uniform test materials are developed, including test directions and instructions for administering and scoring the test. Now let's take a look at the differences between criterion-referenced and norm-referenced tests. By now, you have taken both types of assessments. On criterion-referenced tests, participant performance is measured against a set of criteria. For example, if you have ever taken a behind-the-wheel driver's test, the criteria you were being measured against was on the clipboard of the evaluator next to you. On the other hand, on norm-reference tests, participant performance is compared to the performance of other participants. While most teacher-made tests, especially in K-12 classrooms, are criterion-referenced, most standardized tests are norm-referenced. You may have received a percentage as a score on a criterion-referenced test, while norm-reference tests would give you a percentile, so you would know where your performance lies in comparison to others. So if you received a 95% on a criterion-referenced midterm, this means that you mastered 95% of the material being tested. On the other hand, if you were in the 95th percentile on the standardized test, this would mean that your performance outscored 95% of the other participants. On a criterion-reference test, anyone who meets the criteria can pass the test. This is not true for a norm-reference test. Have you ever taken a class where you were graded on a curve? Was your score compared to others prior to you being assigned a grade? This was a norm-reference test. Think about what we have learned so far in this course. What does it mean to be graded on a curve? If you guessed that scores are plotted on a normal curve or bell-shaped curve, you are correct. Those scores that are the closest to the mean may be assigned a grade of C, while those who are 2 or 3 standard deviations higher than the central tendency may be assigned a B or A, respectively. Achievement tests are also referred to as multi-level survey batteries, since they tend to measure several topics on various levels of difficulty. For example, think about this unit in our course. What topics have you read about? What topics do you think will be covered on the quiz? The 3 major topics for this unit are achievement tests, intelligence tests, and mindsets or theories of intelligence. For these 3 topics, we can ask questions on a range from the lowest level to the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy. While the Salkind book referenced the original taxonomy, we will use the updated version, which was revised by Anderson and Krathwohl in 2001. We know from past units that the lower levels of Bloom's are remember and understand, while the higher levels are apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. Take a look at this matrix. What questions could you create for each topic across all of the levels of Bloom's taxonomy? Here are some examples. For the remember level, we could ask, what is the name of the test used to measure IQ? Notice this question is asking you to identify a discrete piece of information. For the understand level, we could ask you to compare and contrast information. For example, what is the difference between a criterion-referenced and norm-referenced test? A question at the apply level of Bloom's may request for you to apply the theory to your life, such as, what would you say to a friend who tells you that they failed their calculus exam because they're just not a math person? If you were asked to explain the key similarities and differences between 2 concepts, this question may be at the analysis level. An example for our unit is, explain the key difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Is the Stanford-Binet effective at measuring intelligence? Why or why not? This question is asking you to make a decision and then to explain the reasoning behind the decision you made. Lastly, an example of a create question for our unit is, create a higher level question you think will be on this quiz. Could you fill out the rest of this matrix? Would this enable you to predict some questions on the quiz? You would also need to make a decision about what topic or topics are covered most, either in the readings or this recorded lecture, for example. Doing so would give you a good sense of the different levels that will be assessed for each topic on the achievement test for this unit. Next, we'll move on to the topic of intelligence tests. So what is intelligence? That's a great question that many social and behavioral scientists don't necessarily agree on. Intelligence is complex, and this makes it difficult to define. According to Salkind, intelligence is a construct or a group of related variables, such as verbal skills, memory, mechanical skills, comprehension, and more, that has some theoretical basis to it. We will explore the most common theories in the next few slides. Spearman's general factor theory states that there is a G factor, or a general factor underlying all intelligent behavior that accounts for explaining individual differences in intelligence between people. Although he believed this G factor was the key to intelligence, Spearman also recognized that just because a person has a high G score, it does not mean that they will score high on all types of intelligence. For example, a person may have a high G and score well on remembering a string of digits, but not do so well on assembling a puzzle. Spearman referred to these more specific intelligences as S factors, but again believed that the G factor was the most important. Intelligence is very complex, which makes it difficult to define. This fact also makes it very difficult to measure. One of the most commonly used and well-known intelligence tests is the Stanford-Binet intelligence scale. This assessment is based on the general factor theory and measures what is referred to as a person's mental age. This mental age is then divided by a person's chronological age in months to arrive at the resulting IQ score. For the Stanford-Binet intelligence scale, the average score is 100. The Stanford-Binet measures 5 independent general areas: fluid reasoning, knowledge, quantitative reasoning, visual spatial processing, and working memory. Although this test is very straightforward and conveniently sums up a person's IQ, it is too simplistic a measure for something as multi-layered and complicated as intelligence. Spearman's general factor theory is in stark contrast to other theories which dictate that there are several types of intelligence. One example of this is Gardner's multiple intelligence theory, which states that there are 8 different types of intelligences, including musical intelligence, such as the intelligence of John Lennon from the Beatles; kinesthetic intelligence, such as the grace, power, and agility demonstrated by the prima ballerina Misty Copeland; logical or mathematical intelligence, such as that evidenced by the work of Albert Einstein; linguistic intelligence, such as the long list of poems, novels, and speeches produced by Maya Angelou; spatial intelligence, such as the works of art painted by Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera; interpersonal intelligence, such as the intelligence Ellen DeGeneres demonstrates when interacting with her guests on her talk show; intrapersonal intelligence, such as the strength in Gandhi's ability to reflect; and lastly, naturalist intelligence, such as Jane Goodall's intelligence in her interactions with and study of chimpanzees. Assessments have also been developed to measure these different intelligences, which, as you can imagine, do not focus on the G factor. There is so much more about intelligence that social and behavioral scientists are still trying to discover. A long list of questions still remain, such as, is intelligence a universal attribute? Are there different types of intelligences? Can we quantify intelligence? If we want more intelligence, can we do anything about it? This last question has recently been addressed by the developmental psychologist Carol Dweck. On the next few slides, we'll examine Dweck's findings. Look at the following 2 statements. Using the scale, decide to what extent do you agree or disagree with the 2 statements. We now know that intelligence is malleable, but a person's ability to impact their intelligence depends on their mindset. The statement on the left represents an incremental theory of intelligence. Learners with an incremental theory of intelligence are said to have a growth mindset. On the other hand, the statement on the right speaks to an entity theory of intelligence or fixed mindset. In the next several slides, we will examine the key differences between these 2 mindsets and how they impact a learner's intelligence and performance. This graphic is a much more detailed depiction of the growth versus fixed mindset. Again, the fixed mindset is on the left and the growth mindset is on the right. Let's take a closer look at the fixed mindset first. You can see here that when a person has a fixed mindset, that is, that they believe that intelligence is fixed or static, it really leads to a desire to look smart, to prove to others that they've got it. Because ultimately, when we have a fixed mindset, we believe that either we've got it or we don't. We were born with it or we'll never have it. Because the motivation here is to prove to everyone else that they were born with whatever it is, that they've got it, that they're fast enough, that they're smart enough, that they're agile enough, capable enough, or creative enough. They will avoid challenges because any failure is going to be evidence that they may not have as much smarts or as much intelligence or be as fast or be as creative as they want others to believe they are. Those with a fixed mindset also believe that if something is really difficult, it probably means that it's too hard for them, and they'll give up very easily. They don't persist through obstacles because ultimately their effort is seen as fruitless. If you've either got it or you don't, you shouldn't have to put hard work into anything. If you have to work hard, then it must mean you're not smart enough. Because of these beliefs, someone with a fixed mindset is not going to take negative feedback or any type of criticism very well. They see these as insults, as someone pointing out their shortcomings, or how, according to their own beliefs, they're not able to do what it is they set out to do. Ultimately, anyone else who's successful is threatening to someone with a fixed mindset. They see other people's success as evidence that that person is smarter, faster, more intelligent, more creative, more capable than they are themselves. It's a competition. If we're born with what we're born with, then I want to prove that I was born with more than you. I want to prove that I'm smarter, that I'm faster, that I'm more capable. As a result of these beliefs and this behavior, those with a fixed mindset tend to plateau very early and not achieve their full potential. It's a very deterministic view of the world. There's not a lot of control over their intelligence because they believe it's not changeable. On the other hand, a person with a growth mindset isn't out to prove to others that they're smarter or faster. The focus here is not on proving to anyone at all. The focus is on the actual learning. Because of this, a person with a growth mindset embraces challenges. They know that something that is more challenging for them is going to help them to grow and develop, is going to help them to become more creative, more intelligent, more capable than they previously were. Because of this, those of us with a growth mindset tend to persist in the face of setbacks. They know that the obstacles are something that can be overcome, and they believe with enough effort and attention that this obstacle will help them to grow and develop and change their intelligence for the better. Because of these beliefs, a person with a growth mindset is actually very willing to take negative feedback or any criticism, as long as it's constructive, of course, because they see this as a way to help them improve. They see the negative feedback that they get as a way to know where their targeted efforts should be. In addition to this, they also find inspiration in the success of others, because they believe that if other people can do it, well, so can they. Our efforts impact how intelligent we are. As a result of these beliefs and behavior, those of us with a growth mindset tend to reach ever higher levels of achievement. There's never a point where a person with a growth mindset says, I'm done. I've made it. I've hit my peak. To someone with a growth mindset, there is no peak. You're always looking to improve. The focus is not on proving to others how intelligent they are, but on mastery of whatever skill or concept or learning the person is trying to master. So as we compare the two, it's very important to realize a couple of things. Number one, a key difference between the fixed and growth mindset is their perspective on effort. Those with a fixed mindset see effort as being very fruitless, as opposed to someone with a growth mindset who knows there are no results without effort. Number two, someone with a fixed mindset is very motivated to prove to others that they are more capable, more intelligent than everyone else. As opposed to people with a growth mindset, their focus is not to prove anything to others at all, but they're focused on their own mastery, on their own learning, and improving what it is they set out to learn. Lastly, it's very important to understand that even though we know that our intelligence as humans is changeable, and we can get results with effort, it's not only important to know it, but we actually have to believe it to have any impact on how it is that we develop as learners. So what do these mindsets look like in real life? Let's take a look at a couple of athletes to see how this plays out in the real world. You might recognize his face. This is John McEnroe. He was a tennis player, very famous in the 80s. Although he was a great tennis player, that wasn't really what he was most famous for. He was really well known for throwing huge tantrums on the tennis court, screaming at referees, letting them know that they're making mistakes. If you look at the couple of quotes that he has here, you might be able to guess why. What do you think? Fixed or growth? It's pretty much written on the wall or the PowerPoint. This is definitely what a fixed mindset looks like in real life. He says, my greatest strength is that I have no weaknesses. This is a person who was very focused on proving himself to others, on proving that he was born with it. In fact, and this is not a direct quote, he was also heard saying, why do I need to practice 99 times when I can just show up once and win? John McEnroe was a great tennis player, but he didn't meet his full potential. He was much more focused on proving to others just how great he was. But when he did encounter failure, this is where things got a little bit rocky for him. Now, he was great, according to himself, so failure wasn't something that was in his vocabulary. If, for some reason, he did encounter something that looked like failure, it was absolutely anyone else's fault but his. He was famous for blaming his own mistakes at things like the referee's bad calls, the sun was in his eyes, there was an attractive woman in the audience was too loud, or maybe he just didn't feel like winning that day. Ultimately, it's obvious from John McEnroe's behavior that he believes his own effort is fruitless, that he believes he was born with it, he's got it. But because of this belief, he avoided challenges, didn't put out effort, and most likely didn't achieve to his full potential. Now, if you had to think of an athlete to represent the growth mindset, someone who believed that their efforts were the only way to get true results, who would you think of? As many of you have probably guessed, Michael Jordan was who Dr. Carol Dweck referred to as kind of the poster child for growth mindset. Take a minute and read some of his quotes. You can see here he truly believed that if you put in the effort, if you put in the work, that the results would come. He believed that if he hadn't achieved his goal yet, the only reason would be that he needed to work harder, that he needed to focus more. You can see here he says, I can accept failure. Everyone fails at something. This means that he didn't take failure or negative criticism or negative feedback as something that was threatening. He took this as a learning experience, and he used it to propel him so that he could meet the goals of what he wanted to in the future. It's interesting that Michael Jordan is often talked about having supreme skill, talent that he was born with, that he was born to play basketball. But in interviews, he's often revealed that he was cut from his high school basketball team, that he lost championships in college. And you can see here in his quote that he's missed shots. He's lost hundreds of games. His record isn't perfect, as a lot of times he's talked about being. In Michael Jordan's eyes, he never reached perfection. He never reached a point where he didn't need to improve. This is what made him such a great athlete. When everyone else couldn't imagine how he could improve his skills, he knew he had a goal that he was working towards. He focused on mastery, and when he reached his goal, he raised the bar on himself and continued to grow and develop as an athlete. For Michael Jordan, no effort equaled no results. Michael Jordan's continued improvement throughout his career is evidence of his belief that improvement was the focus for him. Michael Jordan was quoted once as saying that he had 3 secrets to his talent on the court: practice, practice, practice. Whether we have a growth or fixed mindset is related to the type of goal orientation we have as learners. If a learner tends to set goals that are focused on learning or mastering content, then the learner is likely to have a mastery goal orientation and a growth mindset. While learners who are more focused on outperforming others or validating the ability they already have are likely to have a performance orientation and fixed mindset. These mindsets have been shown to affect learners as young as 5 years in age and impact a wide range of abilities, from academic abilities such as reading and math, to athletic ability, artistic ability, and even our ability to be a good friend or significant other. In other words, our motivation and performance in many different areas is greatly affected by our beliefs about our ability to improve our intelligence in those areas. Theories of intelligence may be especially important for those who are targeted by stereotypes that are presented in the media, literature, or social environments. In fact, having a growth mindset has been shown to reduce the effects of stereotype threat. Stereotype threat speaks to the anxiety produced by encountering a situation where you may confirm a stereotype. Workshops or interventions that support learners in changing to a growth mindset have produced increased academic performance, including higher GPAs. Think back to the 2 questions you read earlier. What if you agreed more with the question on the right? What if you have a fixed mindset? Well, now that you know that we do have the ability to improve our intelligence through our effort and the application of various cognitive strategies, you can focus on telling yourself to keep persisting when you meet obstacles, that you'll gain better results when exerting more effort, and that regardless of the level of talent you may or may not have, you can always increase your intelligence for any area. The following slide will go over the benefits of having a growth mindset. There are many benefits to having a growth mindset or an incremental theory of intelligence. There is ample research which demonstrates that learners with a growth mindset have goals that orient them toward mastery of learning, whether the learning is how to calculate the standard deviation, how to be a more empathetic friend, or how to create an effective marketing plan for your new business. A growth mindset also results in a more positive attitude toward effort. So if you encounter obstacles in your pursuit to improve, you will exert more effort and persist in the face of these setbacks. Ultimately, A growth mindset leads to increased motivation and higher achievement. These benefits not only affect your academic achievements, but your performance in many other facets of your life. Finally, as you are learning this week, reflect on these questions. Are the achievement tests you are taking criterion or norm referenced? What levels of Bloom's taxonomy were assessed? Do you have a growth or fixed mindset? How has this mindset affected what goals you set for yourself? How can you focus more on effort and persistence in order to improve your performance?